No one thought Africa would be so resource-rich. Everyone got so much meat, it felt more like a barbecue party than a survival test. They seemed to be here to stock up and enjoy unlimited barbecue. Just look at this Christmas feast, who wouldn't drool over it? I wonder if they can eat all that meat. Can I still join in and get some? Last time, Dank's and Gary's team successfully hunted wild pigs and started smoking the meat. However, Gary's meat began to rot. Frando threw up that night after eating, and Darling got hurt and needed to be carried back for treatment. Keith's team didn't catch any wild pigs and lost a member. They hunted an antelope. Gary brazenly asked for food, making Trick uncomfortable and sparking an argument. After all, this is a solo competition, and they're on different teams. I'm really curious to see how they'll handle this next. On the 24th day of the challenge, Keith didn't like arguing with people and wanted Trick to be more accommodating. Trick was speechless at this. If Keith liked feeding Gary so much, he could give away his own share. Trick had no problem with that. Keith fell silent upon hearing this. Trick said he could share with others, but only after he was satisfied. To him, Gary was like a beggar, and he wouldn't give him any meat. In the end, only one person could win the prize, and Keith would rather be eliminated than see Gary win. He didn't want Gary to disrupt the team's atmosphere, so he continued to focus on smoking the meat, trying to get it all done before dark. Gary didn't expect people to be so selfish. He just wanted a little meat, but Trick questioned his abilities. Gary was furious about this and vowed to prove himself in the next challenge. Keith's team worked until dark to finish smoking the meat. Seeing the neatly arranged rows of meat made them happy. Not getting wild pigs wasn't a big deal, they could still get food on their own. Keith felt exhausted and was still sweating. They had to keep an eye on the smoking process all night. They couldn't risk eating spoiled meat like Gary. Things were looking up. Trick was thrilled with his first big catch in a challenge, and he was ecstatic. Some veteran challengers had more experience, but their skills were just average. Everyone probably knew who he was talking about. On the 25th day of the challenge, Dank's team didn't stop hunting just because they had wild pigs. For them, the more food they had, the better. They aimed to stockpile before the next migration. Dank and Jeff, seasoned challengers, knew the drill. The showrunners won't make it easy for them, so they need to get as much done as possible before the next challenge. Jeff says he gets along with Dank, but competition is inevitable. Jeff has been watching Dank closely, considering eliminating him if the chance comes. Dank isn't overthinking things, he's focused on the task at hand. As long as Jeff doesn't cause trouble, Dank is fine with him. After all, his skills spoke for themselves. He wasn't worried about Jeff causing trouble. There were wild pig tracks everywhere, and Jeff quickly found one. He was ready to take the shot. What a bummer, we were so close, but the wild pig just disappeared. Now Frando feels terrible after eating the spoiled meat. He thought he was incredibly unlucky. The wild pig meat was right there, but he couldn't eat a single piece. Only Gary seems fine. Frando, still recovering, fears another sudden challenge. He didn't want to be kicked out because of this. Meanwhile, Gary was excited for the challenge. He wanted to show he wasn't just there to starve. He wanted Trick to see what a true legend looks like and maybe even send him home. After all, he had faced the most challenges in Africa, but he's never faced such intense heat. Fortunately, I've got the stamina to wait at the ambush spot for prey. Dank and Jeff stayed persistent in their hunt, waiting for prey, which brought back memories of Dank's old shooting practice days. It was really tough, but a wild pig finally came into shooting range. But even at such a close distance, Dank missed the target. The skinner was yelling, just a little bit more. Why didn't the wild pig just leap up and grab it? Time was running out for hunting, and the pig had already been scared off. But then, some antelopes arrived to drink. Since they hadn't seen us, we quickly aimed and fired. This time, we nailed the shot. We just had to see how far the antelope would run before dropping. We quickly followed to check. Dank was hunting in Africa for the first time and was too excited for words. They rushed to catch up and see the broken arrows on the ground. The antelope can't be far. Follow the blood trail and see. Hopefully, it's too weak to resist. This made them extremely happy. Dank shot it right through. No wonder it fell so quickly. Without the show's challenges, they could live comfortably. Jeff was surprised at how well they got along after initially disliking each other. Now they can cooperate so smoothly. Their goal is to make it to the finals and then compete for the prize with their skills. Quick, take this back for processing. I wonder if Gary will come asking for food. Dank finds this survival challenge incredibly meaningful. Cherishing every day spent here will become a valuable life experience. Tracy couldn't believe her teammates returned with an antelope. It felt like they were on vacation. Life keeps improving, but Gary has been stuck at the ambush point for ages without any prey showing up. He feels like he's wasting time. Finally, an antelope came, but he couldn't seize the opportunity. The heat is unbearable now. Gary's skin feels like it's being whipped, causing him pain and discomfort. He's at high risk of fainting from dehydration. In this condition, hunting is out of the question. Keith's team can't cool down either. The heat is so intense that the meat could cook on the ground. To make sure it's properly smoked, they've been checking the meat quality all night. So far, it's not looking great, with oil still seeping out. If they can't successfully smoke it today, it might start rotting in a few days in this hot weather. Keith plans to stay put and manage the smoked meat, avoiding unnecessary sun exposure. Dank's team is already working on the antelope. Jeff is confident the meat won't spoil because they have salt blocks. This antelope is much larger than the wild pig, and despite their skill in processing game, it still takes a lot of time. Flies are swarming the antelope, so they need to cut the meat into smaller pieces to make it easier to hang and preserve. If they can preserve even half of it, it will last them a long time. One antelope is roughly equal to 3 wild pigs. Tracy is troubled for the first time by having so much meat. They can really share some with others, and the rest will be enough to last until the challenge ends. Piece by piece of meat is cut down, and the mood is getting better and better, and it is currently the worst life on the side of Jerizu. Getting rid of Gary would be best for everyone. Let's cool off in the pond when we're done. I'm really concerned about heat stroke. Keith and Trick just wrapped up and can now relax by the pool. Trick remarked it was hotter than a sauna and he could almost smell himself cooking. He wished the next challenge would be announced later. No one wanted to face the heat, so they all gathered by the pool to rest. Only the foolish would work in such high temperatures. Only the newbies and the arrogant ones would try. They'd really fry their brains. Coincidentally, Gary just came back from his tasks. He was so weak, he looked half-cooked. Despite his many trips to Africa, no one thought Gary would hunt for so long in such heat. Despite the heat, Gary kept hunting. He eventually cooled off in the water, which made him feel a bit better. Everyone watched him in silence, unsure of his thoughts. Gary worried it might impact the next challenge. After all, even walking was tough now. Jeff was surprised by Gary's weakness. It looked like someone might not survive the next challenge. Gary's heat stroke is worsening, and if not treated, he might be taken away by the Gem tribe. Surprisingly, none of his teammates checked on him, but Keith kindly called a doctor. Soon, staff arrived to examine Gary. Gary believed he was fine, just a bit uncomfortable, and saw no need for an examination. Still, the doctor insisted on checking him out to be safe. Gary didn't want to quit or seem weak in front of the others. The checkup results were okay. The doctor told him to cool off in the water when he could and avoid heavy activities. Gary believed Keith was overreacting. He usually felt better after vomiting, provided he got enough rest and water. He was sure he could continue. Gary felt confident at that moment, but by nightfall, Frando also felt unwell. Suddenly, he started sweating coldly while just lying there. Clearly, something was wrong. I was really worried, but Gary reassured Frando, thinking he was just overreacting. Rest up, you'll feel better. Gary was confident he wouldn't be eliminated, especially with a challenge looming. Their group estimates someone will leave. They hope the challenge is delayed. Despite this, Frando is too anxious to sleep. Only Dank's group is having an easy time. They've achieved barbecue freedom and don't worry about going hungry later. Look at the amount of Christmas meat they have. No wonder Jeff can't stop smiling. Just looking at it lifts your spirits. They have so much meat they can't eat it all. They might even share some later. If every day is this busy, Tracy wouldn't feel tired at all. It's Dank's first time eating antelope in Africa. The meat is just fantastic, mainly because they hunted it themselves, making it irresistible. On the 26th day of the challenge, the show threw in a surprise challenge, likely thinking it's been too easy. Tomorrow, they must migrate to the next area. They also need to make a primitive torch. The show will supply the fuel, but they must find the other materials themselves. The twist is there's an elimination round ahead. Gary's group is the most anxious, with no food and 2 sick members. Dank fears someone from his group will be cut. They're unprepared to migrate 5 miles and carry a torch for the elimination round. It's a devilish schedule, but with a torch, they can hunt at night. Everyone has a pot of oil to use. They need to hurry and make the torch. Making a long-lasting torch isn't easy, especially in this heat. Everyone is very anxious about it. To make a good torch, the materials are crucial. It needs to be safely held and burn for a long time. Who do you think will make the best torch? Trace is new to making torches, so she's learning from her teammates. She copies whatever materials Jeff uses. She mimics Jeff's actions, which frustrates him. He prefers to tackle the challenge solo, away from the group. There are no teammates now. Everyone is a competitor. Dank didn't expect Jeff to leave the team. They still need to migrate together tomorrow. Even if someone gets eliminated, they should still work together, right? That's what he says. But Dank also leaves Tracy to work alone. This makes Tracy very sad. Last night, they were all laughing and eating barbecue together. Now that they're competing, everyone feels like strangers. Maybe they want to eliminate her and share the meat. The Gary group knows everyone is struggling, so they decide to help each other as a team, hoping to complete the challenge together. Fernando thought Gary knew how to make torches, but it turns out he's only seen others do it. Danny has never made one either. What a surprise. The group is inexperienced, so Gary decides to learn from others. They can't succeed by relying only on themselves. Keith has made torches in previous challenges. Although they worked well, he didn't use fat as fuel and isn't sure how animal fat will perform. He hopes it works like pine branches. Keith teaches Trick to make a torch, genuinely wanting to help his teammate avoid elimination. Trick feels lucky to be with Keith. If he were with Jeff, he'd have to figure everything out from scratch. Even in an elimination round, Keith prefers to work as a team. He believes unity is key to surviving in the wild. Jeff, on the other hand, prefers to work alone. He dislikes teammates copying his methods and has already found the best wood. This would burn slowly, ideal for torches. He won't share his method with teammates. After all, this is a solo challenge. He's not naive enough to aid his rivals unless it's a team task. Tracy is in a terrible mood. He has no idea how to make a torch, and no one is willing to help him. He has no choice but to figure it out on his own. He plans to wrap the wick in fat and tie knots at intervals. This should make it burn longer. Dank, although he hasn't made a torch alone, has seen others do it. So, he gathers various materials to experiment with, hoping one will work. He plans to use the top of a ram's horn as a frame. In theory, it should be better than wood. Now he just needs to treat the animal hide. He's very confident in his torch. Jeff thinks the biggest issue is the fat. He's unsure if the flame will keep burning once it contacts the air. The top must ignite as well, ensuring it burns when the bottom fuel depletes. Few are aware of this technique. He's not going to tell anyone. He's certain his torch will be the best, and he can't wait to see others fail. He acted friendly at first, but now he's revealing his true nature. He loves the competition. Keith's group has found the right materials, they just need to cut and process them. Trick feels relieved seeing Dank working solo. If Dank were in their group, making a perfect torch would be tough. Despite the competition, Trick believes the key is learning from each other. He believes that's the essence of wilderness survival. Keith's idea is simple, just grab the fuel and ignite it. In theory, it should burn for a long time. The torch making went well, and he shared his techniques with Trick. It's not just a challenge. Gary's group had it much worse. He wasn't feeling well to begin with. Collecting materials outside was draining. He hoped the bulky deadwood could be turned into a torch. It would be heavy to carry, but he hoped it would last longer. Frando's earlier fishing torch burned out quickly. He wasn't confident about using fat this time. Generally, animal fat needs to be melted at high temperatures first. Next, it must be simmered with occasional water stirring, a process that demands significant time and effort. Frando monitored the fire. Danny felt a headache just watching and wondered how it would turn out. Meanwhile, Dank kept comparing materials. He hoped to make the best torch, planning to wrap the end of a ram's horn with leather, cut it off, and insert a wick. Filling it with lard would keep it burning for a while. Dank believed he could excel in the challenge solo. The torch wasn't even made yet, but Dank already thought it was great and that no one could do better. A Y-shaped branch wrapped in pig fat and ram's horn might light up the surroundings. It looked pretty good, but he was uncertain about its performance. Jeff was nearly done with his torch, just waiting for the rope to fully soak in fat. He did all the work alone today. The torch was quite long. No wonder he said it would keep burning even when the fuel ran out. Jeff lit it and observed for a while. He felt it would handle tomorrow's challenge just fine. Keith's group planned to cut down animal hides to wrap around the torch, making it burn longer. Trick was waiting for the rope to fully absorb the fat. Their torch looked decent, probably the most standard one so far. It should burn brighter, but they weren't sure how long the fuel would last. Gary's group had a lot of progress. Everyone had their own ideas. Frando planned to use deadwood as a base and wrap it with rope, which should ignite smoothly. Danny's torch is lighter, but built similarly. Gary's is the deluxe model, expected to produce a bigger flame. It will be very bright, but it will burn out quickly. After Dank finished his torch, he enjoyed some barbecue. Every time Tracy and Jeff see him sneaking extra food, they find it hilarious. If he wants to eat more, he should just admit it. Jeff doesn't say anything and just watches to see how long Dank will keep sneaking food. Tracy thinks Jeff is being too sneaky. It's like he's waiting for Dank to get caught and argue with others. Luckily, she hasn't mentioned it, or Jeff would be stirring the pot. Seeing the meat right under Dank, Tracy couldn't help but remind him she doesn't want the meat to get any other flavors. Later, everyone ate to regain energy, aware that tomorrow's challenge would be tough. Suddenly, Jeff's stomach rebelled, and he couldn't control it, relieving himself right there. He accidentally splashed some on his foot, grossing out both Dank and Tracy. Unexpectedly, Tracy also felt unwell later that night. By day 28, they were both feeling much better and should manage the migration. Even though everyone ate the same food, Dank had no issues at all. Tracy suspects Dank put spoiled meat in the pot. Otherwise, why would only the two of them get sick? If it was an accident, fine, but if Dank did it on purpose? Jeff and Tracy feel uneasy just thinking about it. Despite being around Dank for so long, there's no trust at all. They decide to focus on the migration and elimination challenge first and be more vigilant around Dank later. Jeff is sure it was Dank's doing. He's still feeling unwell, but hopes to rest before the migration. Do you think Dank did it intentionally? Keith's group is busy packing. They've eaten plenty and have enough energy for the migration. Keith's bag is full of meat, so they don't worry about going hungry, although carrying so much might slow them down. They're not concerned at all and even wish they could bring more. They hope the elimination challenge is individual. That way, they won't be at a disadvantage due to fewer members. Dank's group is ready to leave, but they have a lot of luggage. This migration will likely take a lot of time. Gary's group has it much easier since they don't have much to carry. However, Gary hasn't fully recovered and no one seems to care about his condition. Everyone is focused on how to complete the migration. They all fear they might drop out, feeling quite down. With 3 hours until nightfall, they need to hurry. The path is rough, full of thorns that can easily injure someone. Although the temperature isn't as high as before, they're losing water quickly and worry about exhausting themselves. It's tough to picture a knockout round right after migrating. Some might not cope. They've already been walking for 2 hours. The sounds of wild animals are everywhere, making everyone anxious about a sudden attack. The journey has been tough, but they managed to reach the cave before dark. No one is happy about it, though. With the next challenge looming and everyone exhausted, they just want to finish quickly and rest. This individual challenge is great news for Keith's group. They can't hide their smiles. All tools have to be handed in, and there are a lot: for bows, a block of salt, 2 sets of fishing gear, a hunting knife, and a net. Interestingly, the first place gets 3 items, the second place gets 2, and everyone else gets 1. Being first has a huge advantage. The challenge starts at night, so they have some time to rest. If only they had known this earlier. Jeff would have finished the salt. Everyone has handed in their tools and now needs to focus on the challenge. Time flies. After dark, the challenge is announced. They need to set traps using their torches. Everyone has seen this type of trap before. The 4-stick trap is quite effective, requiring just 3 sticks and a stone. The hard part is managing the top groove. If it's wrong, the trap will collapse before an animal gets near it. Crafting it by torchlight is tough. Danny, a vegetarian, hasn't made many traps, but others aren't too concerned. Everyone is eager to finish the challenge and rest. They quickly light their torches. Jeff feels this challenge is perfect for him. Setting traps is simple with hands and the right materials, which the show has provided in abundance. Gary thinks the challenge isn't hard, just that speed is crucial. The first place advantage is too significant. The challenge was interesting because you had to reset the trap after triggering it. Everyone knew how to make them. The speed needed to be quicker since the torch burn time was a concern. The last challenge took a while. Back then, the torch wasn't a concern. Now, everyone's torches are burning well. The stick markings must be precise. Otherwise, the setup would be unbalanced. Danny worried about cutting his hand. No one had successfully set up their trap yet. He was handling the sticks over and over again. Gary was the first to start setting up. Next door, Danny's lighting was insufficient. He tried to adjust the wick, but burned his finger. Only then did he recall he had plenty of torches. Why not just replace it? It turns out that in such an environment, thinking becomes particularly rushed. Danny's torch also had issues. It needed to be relit. Fernando had a problem too. The stones were too heavy and crushed the sticks. He needed to find new stones. While most contestants had started setting up, none had finished their traps yet. Gary was confident from setting traps in the last challenge. Keith had already finished and triggered his trap successfully. Now he just had to set it up again, which was much easier the second time. Gary had just finished and triggered his trap. Now it was about catching up to Keith, who grew anxious seeing Gary close in. Setting the trap got harder. Being first was a huge advantage. Everyone was eager to win the 3 pieces of equipment. Keith ran into trouble and couldn't reset his trap, allowing Gary to finish first and prove himself. Keith finished the challenge without any issues. Earning 2 pieces of equipment was impressive, as the others could only get 1. As long as they avoided being the last to be eliminated, it was okay. The pressure was intense. They kept adjusting the sticks and setting up. They lost count of how many times they had fixed it. If they got it right the first time, most would be done by now. Resetting the trap further tested its quality. Dim torchlight made carving difficult. Every step was crucial. You had to control your breathing and stay calm to avoid anxiety affecting your performance. Trick eventually set up his trap and triggered it successfully. The second reset went quicker. Another contestant finished the challenge, leaving the rest extremely anxious. Dank finished the challenge quickly. Tracy had the hardest time, struggling to put the sticks together. He had to start over and fix the sticks. Jeff thrived in this intense atmosphere. It brought out his strength. In no time, he completed the trap challenge. Tracy found his shouting very distracting, which hurt her focus. At the same time, Danny managed to trigger and reset the trap successfully. Who would have guessed Danny could finish it so easily, despite his lack of experience? Now, only Frando and Tracy remained. I wonder who will be the unlucky one to get eliminated. The remaining contestants are now considering their equipment options. Jeff is in talks with Gary. He aimed to swap half his food for a bow and some salt. The trade was seamless due to their long-standing friendship. He thought the cooperation would go well. Tracy and Frando were very anxious, facing each other. Nobody wanted to be eliminated so easily. Under pressure, Tracy set up and triggered her trap. It all hinged on whether he could reset it. Frando had just set his trap, making it a race to see who could reset faster. These 2 underdogs have been hanging in there for a while. The other contestants are growing impatient, eager to wrap up, grab their tools, and rest. With everyone watching closely, the pressure was intense. No one saw Frando finishing first, forcing Tracy to bow out regretfully. Although I didn't want to leave, getting this far is a big achievement. I gave it my best effort. I hope I can come back for the next challenge. Now, let's see what tools the contestants choose. Gary immediately picked 2 bows and some salt. It's obvious Gary plans to trade 1 bow with Jeff. Keith chose a bow and fishing gear, while Trick took the final bow. Dank was left with the fishing tools, and Jeff chose the fishing net. Only the knife and Danny remained. Frando ended up with the axe. With everyone watching, Gary and Jeff made their trade. Who knows what will happen next? Let's wait and see together.